If you're a fan of the horror movie, you are not alone.
Mika!
Many have hit the box office with a bang, making literally billions for their cast and crew. Turns out they might deserve the big payday though, with many sets a little more dangerous than you might think. From the difficult to deal with mechanical shark to a life-threatening stunt, here are 15 most dangerous movie scenes ever recorded. Before we begin, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos every day. That being said, let's begin. Number 15. The Mechanical Shark, Bruce. We all love Spielberg's memorable and unnerving picture about a monstrous shark that terrorizes the beachgoers of Amity. However, most of you will have no idea just how much work this film took to produce back in the early 70s. Back then, special effects were just a pipe dream, but the directors on the set of Jaws had more than just special effects to worry about. Problems with actors and general preparation issues aside, this film's greatest challenge came with the decision to use a mechanical shark instead of post-effects. On-set operators found the mechanical shark to be very frustrating, cumbersome, and at times, simply impossible to work with. Not unlike some of the actors, I'm sure. Art director Joe Alves and effects designer Bob Matty spent almost half a year preparing 3 great white shark models for the shoot. Each was to serve a separate purpose on set, appearing in certain shots and at different camera angles. Seems simple enough, surely. Unfortunately, it was far from simple. In fact, Spielberg has since dubbed the mechanical shark as the Great White Turd. Although that pretty much explains the nightmare they were dealing with, the crew suffered through with great patience and perseverance to finish the film. It was delivered at a much later date than first expected and way over its intended budget. Many fans of the film really enjoy the aspect of showing less of the shark during the early passages of the film to fulfill a less is more filmmaking strategy. But the truth of the matter is, the shark malfunctioned so much that it just wasn't worth having our good friend Bruce in multiple scenes. I mean, just have a look at the size of the mechanical shark and how scary and lifelike it looks. Even though it's not a real shark, it certainly looks dangerous even just to be around. It's no wonder it was so difficult to work with. Number 14. The Expendables 3. Statham's stunt goes wrong. Jason Statham has grown into one of the industry's greatest action film stars, especially with his recent rise in fame on the sets of the Fast and Furious franchise. His work on The Expendables once again showcased his abilities in high-octane and intense scenes. In its third installment, Sylvester Stallone casts Statham as he looked to really ramp up the intensity and insanity for fans. So much so that it almost cost Statham his life in the process. There was a rather serious incident on set where Statham was driving a large truck around a loading dock. Something went wrong with the brakes, they failed, and he was sent plummeting into the ocean. Statham could have easily been drowned or crushed to death, but was able to recover and rise to the surface. For most actors, this would have been a pretty traumatic scene, but not for Statham. Like the true hero he is, he simply shook it off and continued working, maintaining his usual quick-witted sense of humor. What a legend. Number 13. Premium Rush. Joseph Gordon-Levitt has starred in plenty of death-defying roles during his lengthy spell as an actor, but has managed to come away mostly unharmed. Who would have thought that he would get so badly hurt on the set of Premium Rush as a bike messenger? Many of his scenes involved him cruising around cars at speeds of up to 30 miles per hour, which, to be fair, doesn't sound terribly dangerous. However, during one particular shooting day, a taxi came roaring into shot, effectively cutting Gordon-Levitt off. This caused him to smash through the rear windshield of the cab, an exchange that left him with a pretty nasty gash right up his forearm. This was a particularly scary scenario for on-set workers, as director David Cope watched from his monitors. Gordon-Levitt was equipped with a body mic, and once he left frame, Cope feared that he had perished after hearing horrific crashing sounds. Thankfully, he was alive and well, receiving 31 stitches after the fact and laughing it off before continuing set. Whether this injury was worth all the pain it caused, we will never know, as the film came up short by a whopping $4 million, leaving him in the red. Fortunately, not blood red this time. Number 12. Now You See Me. This 2013 film was jam-packed with plenty of amazing special effects expected to wow the audience. Now You See Me was nothing short of insane, but many would be forgiven for believing that everything was entirely put together with computer-generated imagery, or CGI. Many would also believe that due to this, actors wouldn't be remotely close to being harmed as a result. However, in Isla Fisher's case, this simply wasn't true. In fact, she escaped certain death in a scene that could have been her last. Fisher's character, Henley, is dropped into a tank of water and is handcuffed while a crowd watches on to see how she escapes. Her chain gets stuck, and moments before death, she is meant to miraculously pull away and impress the audience. In Fisher's case, this scene ended up becoming a close reality. She was stuck for nearly 3 minutes while those on set watching her struggling just assumed she was putting on a fabulous act. It's pretty scary to think that everyone could have been watching her take her final breaths, not realizing she was no longer acting. Number 11. First Blood. Sylvester Stallone's iconic first appearance as John Rambo came with its perks. It was widely successful and well received by fans and critics alike. However, on set, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Filming scenes for the 1982 thriller First Blood, Stallone really committed to the part, often putting his body on the line just to increase realism and believability. During a particular scene where Rambo falls from a cliff and uses a tree to break his fall, Stallone sustained several broken ribs. This was mainly due to the scene being shot 3 times. Stallone took the hit on 3 separate but continuous occasions, so it's easy to see how it happened. This is especially evident when you go back and watch how rough that scene ended up being. That was just 3 takes though. Imagine what would have happened if they needed more. Poor guy wouldn't have been able to continue. He's clearly pretty tough though. In another scene, Stallone was clubbed with a nightstick in jail. Unsurprisingly, he committed to this, and as a result, also sustained some pretty serious injuries to his back in the process. He seems like a sucker for punishment to me. Number 10. Gothika. Halle Berry has a pretty serious history of injuring herself on set. The Oscar-winning actress has been through it all, from knocking her head on a lighting rig on the set of Catwoman to breaking her foot during production of Cloud Atlas. One of her most notable and quite possibly worst bumps came during a scene with Robert Downey Jr. on the set of the Matthew Kassovitz 2003 crime film, Gothika. During a scene in what was supposed to be an interrogation scene, Downey Jr.'s action was to grab Barry's arm and twist ever so slightly. Unfortunately, he twisted a little too hard and in that moment snapped her arm. This is easily her most horrific injury, and as a result of it, Kassovitz and his crew had to postpone shooting for up to 8 weeks until Barry was fit and ready again. Robert Downey Jr. apologized profusely for the accident. However, Barry wasn't too quick to forgive, in fact. She was said to have been pretty annoyed that she lost 8 weeks of work because of him, and that she goes to great lengths to avoid him nowadays. Though Downey Jr. was sorry, Barry obviously feels he wasn't sorry enough. Number 9. Castaway. The 2000 film Castaway is a pretty interesting depiction of how a man goes through living alone on a deserted island. Robert Zemeckis cast Tom Hanks as his main protagonist, Chuck Nolan, who washes up on an island in the Pacific following a plane crash. For a real person, this would be an incredibly dangerous experience, as you would be fighting every day to survive. Little did Tom Hanks realize that his experience on the set of such a film could be so disastrously similar. Hanks very nearly died on the set of Castaway. It was a grueling daily regime and tough on his body. Over the course of filming, he had to gain and then lose 50 pounds to accurately portray his character. This took a massive physical toll on Hanks, like it would anyone gaining and losing weight so quickly. Following this, he accidentally cut his leg during filming. Initially, he thought nothing of it, and neither did the crew. However, after 2 weeks, it began swelling up, and Hanks was forced to see a medical professional. He was soon after diagnosed with a life-threatening staph infection. Fortunately, they got on a treatment quickly, otherwise this set could have been his last. An outcome too awful to even think about. Number 8. The set of Thor: The Dark World. Jamie Alexander, who plays Sif in Alan Taylor's 2013 film Thor: The Dark World, fell victim to unfortunate circumstances during her time on set. We all know the universal truth by now that all modern superhero films come with plenty of stunts and high-intensity action. But with such action scenes comes a great need for caution on set. In other words, with great power comes great liability. God, I'm good. By today's standards, everything is usually done with the utmost care and protection for actors and crew alike. However, in Alexander's case, the on-set stunts seem to have been less protected than usual and took an obvious toll on her body.
Who are you?
I am Malekith.
She hasn't publicly said which scenes caused her issues, but she did describe in great detail what she struggled with. I herniated a disc in my thoracic spine, dislocated my left shoulder, tore my right rhomboid, and chipped 11 vertebrae. The next morning, I got in a car to go to the hospital, and I sat in the car and compressed my spine a little bit and went paralyzed in my right leg and my right hand. So I was in the hospital for a week. Wow, that's a lot of injuries for one movie. It's no wonder they get paid the big bucks. Number 7. Princess Bride. It's no secret that practical sets can be incredibly dangerous, and Rob Reiner's Princess Bride is certainly no exception, with Reiner pushing for sword fighting sequences that didn't use computer-generated imagery or even stunt doubles. So, upon watching the famous sword fighting sequence between Mandy Patinkin and Carrie Ewells, it's crazy to think that it's completely practical, as Reiner wanted to capture some serious close-up shots. 30 years later, it still really holds up. However, it must be stressed just how difficult it was to put together. The pair worked for many hours to perfect this sequence, and with this practice, they were able to complete the sequence at such a rapid pace that even Reiner thought it was a little too fast.
You're using Bonetti's defense against me, huh?
I thought it fitting, considering the rocky terrain.
Reiner helped the pair learn to fight with both hands, which brought more fluidity to the sequence. With such rapid pace, it was inevitable that there would be an injury, and it came in the form of Carrie Ewells breaking his toe during fencing. Pretty minor, really, if you think about it. He was a trooper through it all and continued working through the pain in what was a very strenuous last few days of shooting. Number 6. 7. Leland Orser took his character and acting preparations to intriguing new heights during his brief appearance on the set of Seven. His scene took place in an interrogation room and was meant to be overly traumatic. To match such a tone, Orser spent some time breathing in and out rapidly. This saturated his oxygen intake, allowing him to hyperventilate during his scene. As an added tactic, he also didn't sleep in the days leading up to his performance. In the end, he matched the look of a disoriented and disturbed character. This may not be the most dangerous thing on this list, but it's insane to think of the lengths that performers go to achieve an intended look. It may not have been explosive, it may not have been a car crash, but it was admirable, especially considering it wasn't even a main role for Orser. He's clearly a very dedicated actor. Number 5. Titanic. Titanic is a memorable film for sure, and Kate Winslet's performance holds plenty of iconic moments that viewers and critics will remember forever. But I bet you don't know that a certain sequence of events came mere moments away from ending her life during filming. It's a fairly iconic scene where Winslet and her on-screen partner Leonardo DiCaprio are running down a narrow hall before a massive wave of water crashes over them and pushes them against a locked gate. At the time of filming, Winslet's coat got caught on the gate and kept her underwater for a lengthy enough period to cause concern amongst the crew. Upon untangling herself and rising to the surface, Winslet was initially very traumatized by the whole ordeal. However, director James Cameron had very little sympathy and shuffled her off to her next take. A near-death experience ruined one of Cameron's takes. It's no surprise that he wasn't happy about it. Such a grump. Honestly, though, that guy should be counting his blessings. He didn't have a death on his hands. Sounds like he easily could have. Number 4. Steamboat Bill Jr. Buster Keaton is a massive pioneer in stunt work for modern-day filmmakers, as he has influenced the works of Mel Brooks and even Jackie Chan. Buster Keaton has taught many over the years that our beloved black and white films from the earlier 1900s aren't always a cheesy experience. This is a particularly memorable scene of his where he is stood still in front of a prop house that inadvertently falls towards him and crashes into pieces. The gag, of course, being that he is standing completely still and in perfect position when he goes through the window rather than being crushed. What you probably didn't know is that these sets weighed almost 2 tons, and if he had moved even an inch, he would have perished from the weight of the structure. Many followers and actors, inspired by Keaton, would dub him as the original badass in terms of stunts, as he is arguably the greatest of the early Hollywood legends. In fact, he pioneered stunt work and converted it into an art form for others to follow over the course of the millennium. Number 3. Troy. Troy is such a popular and resounding mythical tale that has been covered many different times throughout history, so it's not surprising that Hollywood had a crack at bringing it to the big screen. During its shooting in 2004, museum curator Leslie Fenton was lucky enough to spend some time on set, and she had many amazing and intriguing things to say about the film, its crew, actors, and overall production techniques. Though she never really got to experience any fighting scenes, she managed to get a look at some of the props they used, and some of these included rather dangerous-looking weaponry and other gruesome items. The prop store shelves were stacked with items like realistic severed heads, impaled bodies, and damaged limbs. Along with those were weapons such as shields, swords, and spears. Much like Princess Bride, Troy had many fight scenes, all of which were heavily rehearsed and choreographed. With so many dangerous weapons, it's a wonder no one was injured during production. That fact is a real testament to the level of teaching that went into the fight scenes and just how quickly the actors picked it up. Number 2. Syriana. Like most films on this list, it seems certain behind-the-scenes adventures are just as fascinating, if not more so, than what is eventually depicted on the screen. In this case, it was very unfortunate for Oscar winner George Clooney, who almost made his final appearance ever due to a rather horrific on-set incident during the filming of the 2005 film Syriana. During the film's infamous torture sequence, a stunt went very wrong for Clooney, who subsequently cracked his skull open. Following consultation from his friend Lisa Kudrow's neurologist brother, he had to deal with the fact that he had a 2.5-inch rip in the middle of his back, a 1/2-inch tear in his neck, and was leaking spinal fluid. The condition was far worse than anyone could have imagined, and it also led to a very long and painful recovery for the film star. 15 days of pain, internal bleeding, and painkiller allergies later, Clooney was on the other side of recovery. However, he has stated multiple times that this incident has changed him forever. Little wonder given the seriousness of just one of these injuries, not to mention 3. Number 1. Drunken Master. 1978. Much like the iconic Buster Keaton, Jackie Chan is also well known for his willingness to put his body on the line in order to obtain a quality shot or stunt. Chan has never needed a stunt double and will happily do all his stunts under the right circumstances. With such actions, however, it's safe to say that Chan hasn't come away from every experience unscathed. Some of his injuries include third-degree burns to his hands, dislocated pelvis, and near paralysis on the set of Police Story. While also on the set of Armor of God, he attempted a wall jump into a tree branch, which he miscalculated and fell almost 15 feet to the ground. On impact, he hit a rock and cracked his skull. This stunt was the closest he came to death and has resulted in hearing loss in his right ear and a permanent plug which fills a hole left in his skull. Sounds ghastly to me. Another incredibly concerning incident happened in 1978 on the set of what is arguably the greatest kung fu movie of all time, Drunken Master, where Chan injured a brow ridge and very nearly lost an eye as a result. It's fair to say that Jackie Chan has given his mind, body, and soul to the industry, and he'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Crazy? We think so. Next time you're sitting back in your armchair watching a movie, thinking how lucky the actors are to be making millions, spare a thought for those who have been injured in the process of making it. There are plenty. Their stories all make for interesting tales, but take it from me, many deserve every cent they earn. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on screen right now. See you next time.